Alright, hello, my name is Garrett Bryson. Today I will be discussing toxic waste and the law. Many people, when they think of toxic waste, they envision a lime green sludge-like substance. Well, that's not always the case. So what is toxic waste? Toxic waste is anything that is a poisonous byproduct of various activities. These activities can include farming, manufacturing, hospitals, laboratories, or just other related activities. Toxic waste may be solid, liquid, gas, or, how most people picture it, like a sludge-like substance. Toxic waste may contain chemicals, radiation, heavy metals, or other various toxins. So where are they? Well, they're found on the land, in the air, and in the sea. Many people just go dump out their old hazardous waste, including batteries, pesticides, paint, and that's how it gets in the land and sea. And for the air, vehicle emissions are also considered toxic waste. So toxic waste is pretty much all around you. Where do they come from? Like I said earlier, most come from batteries, cell phones, pesticides, computers, just any electronic device really that's not disposed of properly. Radioactive waste comes from a nuclear fuel, which is mostly uranium. There's three different types of waste: chemical, radioactive, and medical. Chemical waste is any waste that is corrosive, flammable, acutely poisonous, carcinogenic, mutagenic, or teratogenic. So it could be acid, gasoline, rat poison, and any of those things. Now, carcinogenic is things that cause cancer. Mutagenic is anything that can mutate the DNA sequence. And teratogenic is anything that causes birth defects, affects fetuses, affects embryos, just stuff like that. Radioactive waste is elements and compounds that produce or absorb ionizing radiation. They also include any material that interacts with such elements and compounds. So at nuclear power plants, obviously the nuclear waste is radioactive waste, but also the water and the cooling rods that are used to control the temperatures are also considered toxic waste because they interacted with those elements and compounds. Medical waste is a wide range of waste. It's anything from human tissue to the containers that hold them. It's basically anything that can harbor infectious diseases. So if you get a shot, the needle, the syringe as a whole is considered medical waste. Tongue compressors, cotton swabs, surgeons, whenever they use scalpels, all those are considered medical waste and need to be disposed of properly. Some problems with toxic waste. They're harmful, potentially deadly to living things. The cost, whenever there's a toxic waste outbreak, it costs millions, even billions of dollars to clean it up. And the environment, it can just destroy environments, makes them uninhabitable, just like this slide I'm about to show you. In 1986, a nuclear power plant in the Ukraine, in Chernobyl, exploded, and it caused nuclear fallout, and just made the town so radioactive due to all that waste that came out from the explosion that they had to do a mass evacuation of everybody who lived in it. So now the population is about 50 people, and they're just old people who grew up there and they just refused to leave. These pictures on the left right here, they're mutations caused by the radioactive waste. And then the picture on the top right, it's kind of during construction. They're putting a concrete wall around it to hopefully try to contain some of that radioactive waste. The bottom right is a more recent picture of the wall. As you can see, there's still a crane there, so it's still being built up in this picture, but they're hoping that it can contain all this radioactive waste. There's many laws put in to try to regulate and control waste that's let into the environment. There's so many to talk about that I wouldn't have enough time to talk about all of them, so I'm going to talk about these three right here. Part 260, Hazardous Waste Management System, the Clean Air Act, and the Clean Water Act. Hazardous Waste Management System, it's just general information. It provides definitions of terms such as disposal, container, and transport vehicle. It's just so people don't get confused on what exactly a term means. It defines what classifies as a hazardous waste. So it defines what's classified as a hazardous waste, and it categorizes what type of waste it is, whether it's chemical, medical, or radioactive waste. In this law, it also has proper disposal of various wastes, punishments if you improperly dispose of it, and whether or not you should recycle waste. Which waste should be recycled, which waste should not. The Clean Air Act was passed in 1963. However, several amendments have been added to the law. It is the first major environmental law. Many programs have been installed via amendments to help reduce air pollution. For example, the vehicle emissions test. Vehicles now have to pass an emissions test to be available to the public. If they don't pass the test, then they have to go back and get something fixed so they have lower emissions. These vehicles, they're anything from cars, trucks, planes, trains, boats, pretty much anything that runs on fossil fuels. They also set national ambient air quality standards. It's basically goals of pollution levels in the air that they wish to reach throughout the United States. The Clean Water Act was passed in 1972, and it regulates pollutants in the water. They set standards for wastewater allowed from industry, so factories can only produce a certain amount of wastewater, and if they go over, then they're fined or shut down. They set water quality standards for containments of surface water, so they monitor like lakes, rivers, and stuff, and make sure that it's not overly contaminated, and if it is, if they deem it too contaminated, then they'll clean it up, figure out a way how to fix it, or just keep it off limits. They've made this law where if you want to dump waste in the water, you have to get a permit, unless you are an individual household that is connected to a municipal system, a septic system, or you do not have a surface discharge. Some proper disposal of household hazardous waste. That's just pretty much anything that can be found around the house. Paint, motor oil, batteries, electronics, pesticides, and just various other items. Improper disposal includes dumping in the toilet, dumping it in the sewer, just pouring it on the ground, or just tossing it in the trash can. The proper way to dispose of them is to take them to special facilities. Many towns have places to get rid of them. For example, AutoZone, you can take your used motor oil there, and they'll recycle it for you for free. Also, some Walgreens, Walmarts have special bins that you can put old batteries and cell phones in, and they'll recycle them to help reduce the hazardous waste. Proper ways to dispose of chemical, radioactive, and medical waste. Incineration, it's burning it. Autoclave, it's basically a steam washing it to the point where it's safe to just like toss it into the landfill or reuse it. Treatment, it's just sanitizing it to also be just dumped in a landfill or reused again. Recycling, everyone knows what recycling is. And burial, that's just putting it, usually radioactive waste, in airtight containers and burying it deep beneath the Earth's surface. An example of a company that uses burial techniques is WIP. It is located in my hometown in Carlsbad, New Mexico, and they bury nuclear waste about a couple miles underground. And it's the only repository for the disposal of nuclear waste known as transuranic waste, also called true waste. This picture on the bottom right, that is how they transport it from nuclear power plants to WIP. So if you ever see a semi-truck hauling those tanks, it's best you can safely assume that it's nuclear waste headed to WIPP. The top right, that's their storage containers. They use forklifts to drive them up there, and they leave them there in airtight containers, and they can't get out, and it helps the environment. And it's a great way to get rid of this nuclear waste. So in conclusion, toxic waste comes in many forms. It's harmful and potentially deadly to living things and the environment, as well as the economy. To help control pollution of toxic waste, laws are set in place to regulate proper disposal. And there's several ways to properly dispose of toxic waste. All you have to do is a little research, find the proper way to dispose of the waste you have, and you can help save the environment, which is what we desperately need. That's my last slide. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.